Kate Floss, reporting live from my self-imposed political exile. I'm just going to be letting you know what's going on with the Chatham Islands Wakka, W-A-U-G-A. This Wakka is incredibly important because, as you know, in 1983, in fact, the English Laws Act, which was the 1858 English Laws Act, which held it's the only law in the world that has got the Jesus blaspheme law in it, and that was removed from us in New Zealand in 1983. It wasn't really removed. They actually cannot remove it, but it has been put into dormancy. And what has happened is that 1858 English Laws Act was called the Tature in Maori. That English Laws Act applies to Australia, New Zealand, all of the United Kingdom, all of Canada, everywhere. So that is a very important law. It was removed or put into dormancy in 1983, and they developed some kind of a secondary legislation to be laid over. It got an overlay. Well, it doesn't mean that that law doesn't still exist, and it just means that we have to go in and call it. Now, all the lands that were purchased in the South Island, which is called New Munster, all those lands were actually belonged to the German Empire. And it was the English that confiscated it. English, France, America, and Russia confiscated all those lands, but they did in fact all belong to the German Empire under King William IV. Now, those lands hold covenants called a pertinent right, which means that there was an agreed set of laws, and it was Christian Protestant laws were agreed to that land. What that means is that no matter who that land is sold to, no matter how many times that land is sold, that a pertinent right or the covenant or the law of that land will remain the same forevermore. And so that comes under the 1858 English laws, section 14, which holds the blasphemy law of Jesus. So I'm going to talk about that in another video, but this Wakka that's down on the Chatham Islands is the vessel, and that was the vessel of Jesus to row these laws in. And that's why they always talk about the Moimoi. Now, the Moimoi were both Germanic and, I suspect, African peoples, and those people, they were both white and they were both brown, and I suspect that all those years down on the Chatham Islands when nobody was allowed down there, that they were getting rid of all of the white, blue-eyed people off of that island. Now, those people had a very strict law of peace, no fighting, and written laws, and it was called the law of Jesus. So this Wakka is going back in so that we can put our Protestant protections. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the Muslims and the Jews harmony accord that has been signed by Cindy Caro. That's another video, but today I'm just going to update on the court case that is going on for this vessel of Jesus. It's called the Vessel of Jesus, which is down on the Chatham Islands. It has surfaced. All the canoes are surfacing. All the ships are surfacing. Everything is surfacing. And we've got to go in and claim it. It's very important. So just let you know what's going on in that court case. If we are able to get this vessel, we are going to be able to plant the Protestant Christian law of Jesus, will of Jesus, 1688 Bill of Rights, right back on that land of the Chatham Islands, and shots will go out around the world. So let's just look at where we're at. So I'll put these up here. This is actually the original update of the status. So here is the status. Just let me try and do this. Right, so here is the actual status. And you can see here, it's called CH744 Rekohu Warri Chatham Islands, Wakka assemblage under Z23216. These are the claimants, Moriori Imi Settlement Trust and Hokatihi Moriori Trust jointly. Ngati Mutanka Warri Trust, they are listed as an interested party, not listed as an actual claimant, but an interested party. The Dinks whānau. Now, originally that only applied to the father, Vincent, and the son, Dix, the Dix whānau. But they have since turned tail on that and added other family members, which we will dispute. The Keating whānau to all my viewers out there that are not New Zealand Maori, whānau simply means family. So we'll use English words. The Dix family, the Keating family. Catherine Sixtus, that's me. That is me, Catherine Sixtus. I'm a native German stolen from Germany by King Te Reo Anga and King Tawhio. That's that one right up here on the wall there. Well, stolen by him in 18... Oh, I haven't made that very wide, have I? In 1843. So this here is the claim there. Oh, sorry. There's me, Catherine Sixtus, right here. I'll see if I can make that a bit bigger. I'm not sure if you can see it. So there's Catherine Sixtus here. Jodie Boyce and Maxine Williams. So there's all the people that we have claimed, and it just says that we are received. The ministry has now completed our initial assessment of all received claims for the Warri CH744. It says that there are multiple claimants whose areas of interest cover the find location, and so this is talking about that we actually have an interest in claiming the find location and the Wakka, all have an interest in this case. And so this just talks about the things that we can do, and it says where we have multiple claims, the time taken to work through this process can take some time. It says here, it is worth noting that cases involving multiple claimants can work together towards joint collective arrangements for the care and management of their tongaturu, which means their artefact, as set out under the Protected Objects Act. So there is the actual full I don't know how far that goes down. I don't know. I think it stays in there. All right, so that is, I think it's supposed to be over there somewhere like that. So that is, there, I'll have to get that up there. I've gone and missed out all my alignments. Now I can't find it. Oh, heck. Put that over there. So that is basically how all this started. There was an advertisement, and they kept popping up on my feed, and they kept asking, and then there'd be newspaper articles saying, don't forget to come in and claim your tonga tuturu, don't forget to come in and claim your artefact. So me and a bunch of us innocently went in and claimed it. Quite frankly, I thought I was going to get kicked out right then and there. I was expecting them to send me back a letter and say to me, you're not Maori, you cannot claim. But they did not. I fell off the floor. I fell off the chair when they came up and they said, you're listed as a claimant. So I was so surprised. Okay, so nobody intended to cause damage. I already have a claim in at the Waitangi Tribunal for the Chatham Islands. So I was not expecting this at all. Now, as it turns out, the Ministry of Culture and Heritage did write a letter to Jodie. We had asked for some information, and they did write a letter, and they insinuated that they do indeed have artefacts belonging to the St. Pauli ship. The St. Pauli ship is where the native Germans that was shipped out from Germany, direct from Germany to New Zealand. That Nelson, they were supposed to go to the Chatham Islands, but they were tricked and taken to the Nelson area, where they have remained to this day. And so they basically got tricked. Well, the ministry did say, yes, we have possibly artefacts belonging to them, and we also have more information belonging to them, and some of it we're not willing to research. So they said you'd have to make an application to the Ombudsman if you want us to release that stuff. So that's where we were. That was on the 5th of, I think it was on the 5th of May that we two of us got that letter. On the 8th of May, you can see here, oh, that's not right. Let me just get this right. Oh, that's not supposed to be showing. Oh, no, don't do that. I don't want you to do that. Right, hang on, let me just get this thing. I've turned that off. Hang on, I'll just unplug that. Oh, heck. Oh, heck. We gotta get it. Oh, heck. Right. Right, that. Oh, my back. Right, let me just get this aligned. That's going to be better, isn't it? Well, no, it's not. Oh. There you go, that's going to be better. Maybe bring that down a bit. Right, there you go. So the dense whānau, which is here. So this will show you here that I'm not telling any lies. So this is from the Maori Land Court. It says there in the Maori Land Court, and it says an application to determine the ownership of the artefact. These are the applicants, which is the Hokotihi Moriori Trust and the Moriori Emi Settlement Trust. So they've popped in to claim it, right? And this is the application, and this is the application. They stole my coordinates, 44 degrees south, 176 degrees west. Now there's dispute here because they did this in August, but I actually in May of 2024 and June of 2024, I made an application to the Waitangi Tribunal for a claim to the Chatham Islands, and I had used 44 degrees south and 176 degrees west. Well, they've gone in and tried to claim it, but we've said, well, first in time, best in right. So there's going to be a big dispute about this down at the court, right? And then it was not me that asked to go to the court. Look there, they called us into court. So there's all the claimants. There's the Ministry of the Ngāti Mutanka, the Dex whānau, Keating whānau, Catherine Sextus, Jodie Boyce, Maxine Williams. So this two Moriori here, they are the ones that called us into the court because they said, we've got a statutory overlay on that land and anything that's found on that land, and we're coming in to claim it and to determine the ownership of the Tongatuturi and to make this claim. Well, they said that these are the affected parties. So it was not me. It's no good getting all your titsies in a tits over me and over the 7 applicants because we never made the application. We were just going to be going to the Ministry of Culture, and quite frankly, if they had have said to us, look, you've got no claim. I probably would have just gone away and said, well, no, I would not have gone away. I would have appealed it. I wouldn't have given up on it. But I certainly probably would not be in the Maori Land Court right now as we speak. So it's the Moriori that called us in there. We are all the innocent parties. It's no good getting all angry on us. So I'll just put that to the side there just in case I need it. I'll put that down there, right? Turn that off. And then I can see why I've had to move this over sometimes, because it was always supposed to be there. So the next thing that happened, right? The next thing that happened is that, so that should go right over there, right? So the next thing that happens is that we all end up going to the Maori Land Court. And so this occurred on the 12th of June, 2024. This is called the 95 Te Wai Paunamu. And then this is actually the ruling of the judge, right? And what he basically said in his ruling, I don't need to give you all the details. You can take a screenshot, but you can see there, Maori Land Court. And then you can see here, this is the memorandum under sections 4.2 and 11.1 of the Protected Objects Act. And you can see us right there. And the judges actually asked if the ministry would respond to the Memorandum of Council for the applicants of June 6th. So that doesn't apply to us. And then the Memorandum of Council for the Dix whānau. So basically, the only two that the court has asked the ministry to make comments on is the Dix whānau, the Dix family, and the Moriori. And that is it. And did not mention any of the other peoples, because he basically said, oh, I might not have jurisdiction over you. So furthermore, he went on during the court case, and then he said he wanted a report from the ministry just explaining how much excavation has taken place, how much funding constraints there are, and all of these things. And he set out the rule of law for the protected artefacts, tonga tuturu, and he set out the criteria that to be a tonga tuturu object, it must relate to Maori culture or Maori history or Maori society, which we know that it absolutely does. And it was or appears to have been manufactured or modified in New Zealand by Maori. Well, very, very difficult to prove that. Very, very difficult. Or brought into New Zealand by Maori. Well, that's not actually that hard to prove. We actually know that the Maori were running all these ports, and we actually know that whenever any boat went onto those ports, the Maoris were down there defending their lands. They sank many ships. They everything had to be approved by them. So the idea that they just the canoe was taken onto that shore without their knowledge, it's very unlikely. We cannot say absolutely, but we would say very unlikely that would have occurred, right? So the next thing that happened, and then it must have been, or it could have been used by Maori. So it could have been used by Maori, or it could have been, and it has to be more than 50 years old. Now, the only ones that submitted, you can actually go and look at the one from the Greeks over here, and you'll see that you've got Dix whānau, Keating, Dix family, Keating family, Catherine Sixtus, Jodie Boyce and Maxine. But what you'll actually see here is that the judge, the only ones that submitted papers was Catherine Sixtus, Jody Boyce, and Maxine Williams were the only ones. Some of these submissions were put near, so don't worry about all of that. And here said, in the introduction to her submission, Miss Sixtus says that the Wakka on Doughboy Bay on Stewart Island and the Chatham's Wakka were built by the same people and culture, namely the Beakers and steppe tribes of Germany, shipped to Zealandia from the Highland German caves by Gottfried around the year 1105 and 1137. So I've said they were shipped in and then they built the Wakka when they got there. Miss Williams says that before the commencement of she is a native of the continent of Zealandia, that she has 2 children who whakapapa to the mayor and the St. Pauli ship that landed here in 1843, as do I. She also says that she is whakapapa to the 3 Wakka, Arawa, Kota, Hinui, and the Mātātua, and is of Ngai to Pango, Te Rawa, Te Aupuri, Ngāti Wananga, and Ngāti Maruhapu. These people don't know who they are. She get angry if I say that, but anyway. She goes on to say that she supports investigating the historical evidence of Caitlin Waterman. Well, Caitlin Waterman and Catherine Sixtus are one and the same people. This is just a Facebook name. That's all it is, a Facebook name. Comes down my mother's line and it's a Facebook name. But Catherine Sixtus are one and the same, which shows there is a possibility of the relationship of the Moriori to the Moimoi Belbeaker people. Jody Boyce says that her family are descendants of Charles Samuel Cave and Suzanne Gage Noon, and she claims an interest in the Wakka, which she says may have been built by the German Belbeakers. That is, she is descended from the AB originals as defined in the Treaty of Preamble of the Treaty of Waitangi and of the House of Hohenzollern Protestant line. Then the judge says the Keating family are listed as amongst those who have registered as an interest to the find with the ministry, but to my knowledge have made no submissions or papers. Now, I'm going to be telling you some news about that later, so don't worry about that guy there, the Keating whānau, because he's here. So he's come in at a late... Oh, now what have I done? Oh, no. Put that back there. So, with respect, he says that it's my preliminary view that the court does not have jurisdiction to entertain the respective claims, but that may well have changed. However, as indicated to Miss Sixtus at the conference, before deciding the issue, it would assess if these parties could provide further information to the court addressing why they consider the court has jurisdiction to hear their respective claims. And he says, I direct further submissions from these parties who wish to be filed by on or before the 4 p.m. on the 4th of July. So, and then, now this is where, so that was all done. We all did put our submissions. We all did put in and explain why we thought that we did come under the jurisdiction of Tonga Tuturu and why we did come under the jurisdiction of having the judge rule on this case for us. So that's going to be one thing. But here is the big controversy that is causing the big hoo-ha down at the court. So the Ministry of Culture had prepared a report called the Provenance Report. That is called He Waka Tipua. Says all other parties other than Miss Sixtus were supportive of the ministry proactively releasing the Provenance Report. And I confirm that the ministry may do so. Now, here is the big hoo-ha problem. I objected. I adamantly, absolutely objected to that report. And we got a letter. I'll show the report at the end. No, I'll start. I'll show the report. So here is the report. The report is easy to find. You can go onto the Ministry for Culture and Heritage and you will see the He Waka Tipua report. And it's right there. And then these are the professors. Now, what is the reason that I opposed this report? I absolutely opposed it because they've put up all the newspaper clippings about it, but they have not mentioned, there's one from the 9th of July and there's one from the 4th of March. And they have not mentioned in their report that there are other claimants. So I had objected greatly to this report, and I continue to object to the report because even though the ministry already had my letter saying that we were Germanic, Belbeaker, Moimoi peoples, even though they had that in their hands, they ignored it, and there was no mention of it in the report. Now, I had opposed it because of this, that when they prepared the report, we met with representatives from the Haukatihi Moriori Trust and Moriori Imi Settlement Trust and representatives from Ngāti Mutanga. Now look here, and that we also met Vince and Nikau Dix. Now this is why I'm disputing, because you go and have a look at who are the people. So the people that went into the court is the Haukatihi Moriori Trust, the Moriori Settlement Trust, so that's all fine and dandy. There they went to meet with them, and they went to meet with them. But then look, they then met, this is why I'm disputing the report. They then met with the Ngāti Mutanka. They then met with the Dinks whānau. But you know what? They never even sent a letter. They never consulted. They never spoke to the Keating family, Catherine Sixtus, Jodie Boyce, or Maxim. They just absolutely ignored us, totally ignored us. And they only met with the Moriori Trust and the Moriori Settlement. They did not even acknowledge that there are other claimants. But hey, listen to me. We all of us, the four of us, they advertised and they said everyone can come in and claim. If I was of the understanding that I was going to be completely left out of all this and made the fool, I would not have applied. I've already got my case in at the Waitangi Tribunal. So that's why I disputed that there. Now, I also disputed it because then they took pictures. These are the people on the island. So they did not make any, this is a very biased report. They've taken, now these go on the public record forever. And then they showed all the work that they're doing, which apparently cost $500,000 they've spent on this little bit here, right? And then if you go down, so this is actually a burial ground. It was placed in a burial ground, and unfortunately, you can see that the excavators have not done a good job because the Dinks whānau, who were not qualified, were involved in the first part of the excavation. And if you can probably actually see here on this cloth was probably overlaid. And what they've done is, look how pristine that cloth is. What they've done, so I can increase that. You see how pristine that cloth is? Now, we don't actually know where the cloth was. Was it all mixed up in there, squashed up, or was it overlaid on top of the canoe? This canoe was clearly buried, and it was clearly buried in a very precise way. It's very precise, and they had gone in there and started excavating it, and I don't think that they've taken the proper pictures, but to my understanding, they've gone and put it all back and reburied it, because I don't think that they should have uncovered it all until all of the issues had been dealt with. So this is a very serious issue that's going on with this fund. You all should be looking at this. Now, I just go back down. So then if you go down to number 17, so these are parts of it, but in actual fact, this is also corrupted now. This is very corrupted because there's no pictures of where in the burial ground this piece was found. Now, there may be pictures or there may not be pictures. If there are pictures, they belong to the public. And so I don't think that they're supposed to excavate before they got permission, and the ownership issue should have come in to that. So I just feel that we don't know the position of the obsidian and the position of those pieces, and probably now, because they've gone and done that, we probably will never ever know. All right. So this is the obsidian that was found on it, which New Zealand Maori are not known to use, but where I also had a complaint, because over here in section 17, you can see that they've actually they have actually spoken about the Vince and Nikau Dick's family again, and talked about they've shown us the landscape, and they're trying to give advice about the vulnerability of it, and having visited and listened, and local knowledge and environment and seasonal, and they're saying that it's urgent, and that what they're saying is that the nation should accept responsibility for ensuring that it's all recovered. And they've actually changed the name. They've not mentioned, and they're trying to say it's from the Pacific. They're claiming that it is a Pacific canoe from the Pacific voyages. So they're really trying to, and they've taken it from Aotearoa. They've put in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in the report, and Winston Peters has just announced in Parliament that that is up to the will of the people, and it's unconstitutional to use Aotearoa, New Zealand in government reports unless it is the will of the people, and nobody has asked us. So I'm heavily complaining about this report. Now, the last bit of the report, which I found to be very contentious to me, was, I'm not going to go all of it, but they often, they've put in the Kohangarero, and they've just assumed that it's a, and there they all are there, and there they all are. And see, this is they're getting these pictures so they can get it on the public forum, on the public published. They managed to get this in the court, and they tricked the court into publishing an evidential report with all the providence that they were there, they were excavating, they were advising. All of these things has now been published, and the court have said that they could do that, and I am just out the park upset because that Wakka belongs to the German bellbeakers, which are the Moiriori themselves. We are the Moiriori, those fakers are not. And so, but then if you go right down to the very bottom of the report, the final report was the front cover was a braided fibre lashed around wood found during Wakka, and they, oh my God, and they can't even spell. It's not even, I'm going to tell that to the judge. It's not even spelled properly. That's how badly it was written. So they can't even spell. It's on the X action. Is that even a word? X action. During Wakka X action. It might be a word. I better say I'm not very good at English. X action. Legal term. And the legal context, exaction refers to the act of demanding or compelling something, usually money or a fee, especially when it is not rightfully due or when it is excessive. It can also describe the thing that is demanded, such, well, that's right, that's what they're demanding. Under the colour of authority, exaction frequently occurs when someone in a position of authority or a public official uses their permission to demand something. Oh my God, well, you know, it might have been a slip of the pen, but it was showing that lashed around during Wakka exaction, and that's the word that they've used. I don't know if they intended to use the word excavation or if they intended to use the word exaction. But anyway, so this is the fibre that was taken by the Dix Whānau. Now, we don't know. We don't know because there were there's no provenance of where from the site that was taken from. To my knowledge, they may well have taken pictures of where it was taken from. They may well not have. If they did and they're hiding it, they better bring it all forth. It better all be disclosed in the court. So those things, or otherwise they've excavated it and they've taken pictures of it away from the excavation site. And that is a very bad thing because they've compromised, because we would not then be able to absolutely say that it's from the excavation site, and they've actually violated and compromised the entire excavation. And so there's many, many, many reasons why I had objected to that report. Now, many, many reasons, but you can go and look at that report yourself. Just go over to the Ministry of Culture. Where do we go from here? So we then got a letter from the ministry, and we got a letter from the ministry, and on the 9th of July, they said, we have now published this report, because the court had said that they could publish the report. Well, I came in and objected like you've never seen, because the reason why I objected is because of this. During that, I got a transcript of that court case because it was all recorded, and I had previously asked for a transcript. Now, this is the entire transcript, and there's Tahuia. She works for the Ministry of Culture. She's lovely. She's very, very helpful. And these are just all the lawyers. Now, there's Miss Sixtus, and the judge said, do you have anything? I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm not going to get many opportunities to speak. I was very aware that the lawyers would be the ones that would be doing the most of the speaking. I was very aware that I wouldn't get to speak. So as soon as he asked me introduce myself. I thought this might be my only chance. I'm going to get in and get on the public record quickly. So I got in there and I said, my native language is German, but it's been lost to my people for 150 years. So I'd like to recognize the native, and they've scribbled it out, but I said native German people of the Chatham Islands and Moimoi peoples or bell beggars, which we now call New Zealand. He says, thank you. And then I piped up again as quickly as I possibly could. And I said, there are other people in that land. So I'd mention that. There's a little bit of an echo. I don't know. Should I go out and come back? But he said, I can hear you just fine. He says, okay. Then he just says hello to everybody. Nobody says a word. And then it goes on to the lawyers and the ministry. Nobody gets to speak. And it's just the lawyers and the ministry putting forth what they want to talk about. And they talked about the Providence report and all of these things. Now, at some point, where does he say that? At some point, Schedule B, Moriori, what we want, therefore, and the Moriori. It's going a bit fast. Maybe I'll slow it down a bit. And the Moriori, I'm not going to read it, but you can, but there is a point here. He says that is the mandate of Mr. Dix to speak for himself, and Nico Dix and his son, he says they can speak for themselves, and he speaks very nicely of the Dix people, speaks very nicely of the Andersons, and then he speaks extensively. Does Mr. Dix have the authority to speak? So he's asking about them. And then he continues. And then later, I don't think I'm going to talk about him for too much. He's kind of gone. At one point he called me vexatious, which maybe I won't put that up. But anyway, this is just the court. Then at some time he says, can I address Ms. Sextus, Miss Boyce and Miss Williams? And so he addressed us, and he said, there is in my mind a question of jurisdiction arising in respect of these papers filed, and that's whether this court has jurisdiction over the matters that you are raising. The application is for the determination of ownership of Tonga-Tuturu, and Tonga-Tuturu are defined in the legislation that I told you. He said, as I understand the papers filed, it's not clear to me that Miss Sextus, Miss Boyce or Miss Williams are within the bounds of the court's jurisdiction. So we are currently arguing that, and he's asked us to file within the 4th of July, right? Then he goes on, and then after that he says, so I'll set out the direction. So we're to come in and talk about jurisdiction. So he says, I'll set out in the direction what I seek in terms of response from parties to these various jurisdictional points raised, then look for a response in writing or on or before the 4th of July. Then he says there is also the matter of the provenance report, right? So that provenance report is here that I've just been talking about. And he says, from what I've seen of the papers filed, there is no objection to that, and there is some support for it. So I'm certainly minded to confirm that the ministry should proceed in that way. But I just want to check, does anybody raise an objection? Does anybody raise an objection? And I knew, that's when he gave the signal. Here's the question, Answer now or forever hold your peace. Well, nobody answered, but okay, Floss, I did. I said to him, yes, I have an objection to that, Your Honour, sir. And he says, that's Miss Sixtus speaking, is that right? May I speak? Yes, Miss Sixtus. Yes, I object to the fact that they have added Te Moana Nui Akiwa, who were not applicants to the original time frame that we had to apply, and they've been slipped in there, and I would like to see the references to Te Moana Nui Akiwa redacted, please. All right. He said, I don't quite follow that reference, should be taken out of the provenance report. And I said, well, because they did not, we were given, there were actually 2 time frames, and the original time frame for applications at the Ministry of Heritage and Culture was actually the 4th of February. And there are only 3 applicants, the Moriori and Ngāti Mutanka and myself. Then after the 4th of February, it was then opened up for 60 days. And I know that Te Moana Nui Akiwa is in fact an organisation, and it has people within it, and they did not make the application either before 4th of February or before the 7th of April. The court said, I see. And I said, so I don't see why they could be part of the case. He says, all right, I think you have misread or misunderstood those references in the report, but I don't think so. As far as I'm aware, there's no party or no interested party currently before the court under that name, but the report does actually say that they are interested in being a party to this. It does say it. So with that, and he said, with that respect, I think you have misread or misunderstood. I hear what you're saying. I don't agree, and I will confirm that the ministry should release the report. And then he said, I see no proper basis to require to the ministry to withhold that report, and so that would be my decision on that point. If there are other matters about the number of parties that are properly joined, or if this part, then you can make those points along with the jurisdictional clarification on the 4th of July. I said, yes, I have another point, but he said, I don't need to hear any other points at this point. And I ignored him, and I said, the other point is that I just think the references to the Pacific Polynesian people having any claim to this Waunga, the Waunga is built off, and he interrupted me. And he did not allow me to continue my complaint. Wow, it's going to be big complaints. Well, we then on the 9th did get given the go-ahead that this report was going to be the go-ahead, right? And so then I got the letter. I'm just going to try and finish this as quickly as I can. I did get the letter, and then after I got the letter, I had written them a letter. Now, I'm not going to read it all, but I had said to them, Guten Morgen, Fräulein Jessica, and I had said that the He Waka Te-Pua report will be made public. I would like to notify the ministry that I did object to the publication as a Germanic Moimoi Bellbeaker allegiant to the Hohenzollern kings, and I do think that all claimants have not been reflected in the report, so that was my problem, have not been reflected in the report, even though there are in fact 7 properly registered claimants to their tangata turu. To my understanding, they are Moriori Emi Settlement Trust, Ngāti Mutanka Wari Kauri Iwi Trust, Dick's Whānau, Dick's family, Keating family, Sextus, Boyce and Williams. And I said several things in there. You can probably take a screenshot and read it for yourself, and that I said that I did object, as you could see, that I did object, and the judge had cut me off. So the judge had said, does anyone raise an objection to the ministry publishing the provenance report? And I had said, yes, I have an objection. So in light of that, I had gone on to ask them that could they please publish the full list of claimants that wish to be named, so that the public interest is not under the illusion that the owner status of the Wakka has already been determined. So that's what I've asked them to publish, the other claimants' names, and to let the public know that this claim is in dispute by 7 parties, and that we request them to publish on its website the Sixtus objection made to the Maryland Court in reference to the publishing of this He Waka Tipua report. Now, they have since sent me back a letter. The ministry will include the question of publication of the claimants on the ministry's website. In its memorandum to the courts, they're going to ask the court if they can publish our names, and they're going to file it on the 1st of August because they had asked for an extension. And they are going to perhaps include the comments. They are going to perhaps include the comments, or they are going to perhaps include the comments regarding the public interest, and that there's no illusion that the owner status of the Wakka has already been determined. The ministry might attach my email. So that is the letter there that you can see there, right? And I might have to go back, do something here. And so that is the letter that I had written in complaint. So there's 2 letters. So one letter is from me with my complaint, and I've asked them to publish it on their website, and the other letter. So that is going to be all done, and that's the end of the video. So please keep up to date on the Wakka being claimed by Kate Floss and 6 other claimants. And by the way, the Keating family have since put in an application, and they are actually, where is that? I don't think I have that. So they have indeed put in their application and claimed their claim, and they said they don't want it to be just used for testing, that they would like the provenance of this canoe to be established. So just because it was built by native Germans and Moimoi Belbeka people out of Germany doesn't mean that the New Zealand Moriori and New Zealand Maori were not heavily involved in the usages of it, in the dismantling of it, in the burying of it, in the protection of it. They would have absolutely protected that canoe. And the coordinates were placed over there in Germany. This is the biggest case that has ever hit the shores. This is going to be significant for Australia, for the United Kingdom, not so much Canada, but Australia and the United Kingdom. This is the most significant find, and it's going to finally give a voice to the native German Moimoi Belbekas that were shipped out. So I've got to go now, and I'll talk to you later, okay?